Welcome, curious minds, to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a subject that, well, it's fascinated humanity for centuries, hasn't it?
It really has.
The often misunderstood world of mind control, NLP, and hypnosis. Our source material for this deep dive is a comprehensive guide called Mind Control, NLP, and Hypnosis by David Shuttleworth. And this book, it promises to demystify these really intriguing concepts and reveal how they truly work. It's like a roadmap, almost.
Indeed. And our mission today really is to extract the most important insights from this material chapter by chapter. We want to give you a clear, structured understanding.
Right.
You know, what hypnosis is, what it isn't, how it's induced. Its applications, which are pretty diverse, actually, from therapy to, well, even stage performance.
Okay.
We'll be uncovering some surprising facts, I think, and definitely dismantling common myths, helping you become, genuinely well-informed on this captivating topic.
So if you've ever wondered about the secrets behind, say, a stage hypnotist's apparent power, or how modern mentalists like Darren Brown seem to manipulate minds right before your eyes, well, you're in for a treat. Okay, let's unpack this fascinating subject, starting right at the beginning with the fundamental question. What is hypnosis, exactly? #tag1, what is hypnosis? The author, Shuttleworth, he immediately draws us in, reminding us of the sheer captivation of hypnosis. Especially, through those stage performers, the ones who seem to manipulate and control seemingly rational people into doing all kinds of bizarre and potentially embarrassing things. It's that immediate impact, isn't it? It just grabs you.
It absolutely does. And it speaks to a deep human curiosity, I think, about influence and perception. The source directly links this public fascination to modern magicians, specifically mentioning Darren Brown, who masterfully uses the power of suggestion to very rapidly manipulate and control strangers. And this has clearly created an unquenchable thirst for knowledge about hypnosis, NLP, and other forms of what people often call mind control. That allure of influencing people you've just met, maybe even tapping into a sort of subconscious desire for that kind of power. It's a strong draw. It's a powerful way into understanding these mechanisms.
And right away, the book tackles the definition, which is, well, crucial. The word hypnos, it comes from Greek, means to sleep. But the source quickly clarifies that hypnosis is very different from sleep. So, okay, if it's not sleep, what is it? And how does the book sort of square that idea of it being artificially induced with something that also sounds natural?
That's a great question. The definitions provided are actually remarkably consistent across the field. They describe hypnosis as a state of heightened awareness and focused concentration.
Okay, heightened awareness, not sleep.
Right. An artificially induced altered state of consciousness, characterized by heightened suggestibility and receptivity to direction. It's also seen as the use of progressive suggestions to bring a person into an altered state where suggestions of change can be given with minimal resistance. Now, this raises that important point you mentioned. If it's artificially induced, meaning someone guides you, how natural is it? Well, the book emphasizes it's also a naturally occurring state, like sleep or daydreaming, where attention is turned inward with heightened openness to new ideas. So it's induced, yes, by guidance, but it leverages something already within us, a natural mental capacity for focused inward attention. Think of it less as an external force, maybe, and more like a guided redirection of our own mental states.
That really reframes it. So not some mystical thing, but guiding our natural states, like a really focused daydream. What does the book say is the sort of ultimate purpose of leading someone into this state?
Essentially, the book distills it quite nicely. Hypnosis is the ability to lead someone, using verbal direction, into an altered state, like that daydream state, where they are much more receptive to suggestion.
Okay.
And once they're in that state, the hypnotist can make suggestions to help the subject break damaging or undesirable habits such as smoking, overeating, anxiety, etc. And that's the point where hypnosis becomes hypnotherapy.
Right.
It shifts from just a curious state to a practical, potentially very powerful tool for self-improvement, for overcoming these really entrenched behaviors.
That sounds incredibly impactful, but I mean, how does that actually work? Like, on a fundamental level, what part of our mind is being accessed or influenced to make that change happen?
Yeah, the actual mechanism, the nuts and bolts of why it works, it's quite difficult to quantify scientifically. But the source explains it by talking about our subconscious mind and something called the critical sensor. Our core drivers, what we agree with, disagree with, love, hate, our deepest desires are deeply embedded in our subconscious mind. This isn't stuff we consciously control. It's essentially hardwired.
Hardwired through experiences, maybe.
Exactly. Experiences, preferences, needs, even direct commands or suggestions we've picked up from authority figures throughout our lives. It's all in there.
And this hardwiring, it also forms something called the critical sensor. Okay, so if the subconscious is the main driver, what exactly does this critical sensor do? Is it like our internal bouncer for new ideas?
Precisely. That's a great analogy. Think of it as a filter. Yeah.
Yeah.
It decides whether information coming at us aligns with our deepest existing beliefs, that hardwiring. If new information is accepted, it becomes part of our knowledge, our belief system, our moral view, maybe a new desire. It gets absorbed deep down. But if it conflicts with those deeply held beliefs, it's rejected by the critical monitor and has no effect on our behavior or actions. So even when our rational, logical mind, what Freudian psychology might call the ego, even when that part analyzes info and says, yeah, this makes sense, it still has to get past this superego, this gatekeeper, to reach the powerful id, the subconscious, where it can actually influence our behavior.
Okay, that immediately clarifies why breaking habits like smoking or overeating is so incredibly difficult. Our logical mind tells us to stop. We know it's bad for us. But that conscious command gets rejected by the critical sensor because the habit is so deeply embedded in our subconscious mind and has become a part of our image of who we are. The logic just bounces off that filter.
Exactly. So the profound insight here really is that hypnosis helps by gradually subduing or maybe distracting this critical sensor, often by just concentrating all the subject's attention onto one thing. This distraction allows the hypnotist to speak almost directly to the subconscious mind, bypassing the filter, enabling suggestions to be accepted without that usual conscious resistance. It's not about sinister mind control, but about creating a direct pathway to the part of the mind that really drives those deep habits and beliefs, helping facilitate change from the inside out. Hashtag 2. What isn't hypnosis?
Okay, so having delved into what hypnosis is, the source is really keen to immediately dispel some myths about what hypnosis is not. And this is so important, isn't it? Because pop culture has really, really muddied the waters here.
Oh, absolutely. Leads to a lot of misconceptions.
So what's the first big myth the book tackles?
First and foremost, it's explicitly stated. It is not magic.
Okay.
It's a perfectly natural state, somewhat akin to daydreaming. The inductions, the words used, they aren't magical incantations. Understanding the actual process is vital.
Makes sense.
It's generally safe, but the book does emphasize, quite strongly, contraindications, specific conditions where you absolutely should not hypnotize someone. These are critically important, and we'll definitely touch on those later.
Good. And this reminds us, too, that it's a two-way street, isn't it? An interaction. The person, ideally, should consent to being hypnotized and shouldn't have any anxieties. So many common concerns are just caused by, artistic license used by TV and film producers, and these need to be addressed directly with the person. Otherwise, their mistaken beliefs just make it harder.
Yeah, clearing the air is paramount. This section is truly crucial for anyone approaching hypnosis, whether you're thinking of trying it or even learning it. Let's really break down these pervasive misconceptions the book explains so well.
Okay.
First, the big one, that enduring myth that you can be hypnotized and do things against your will.
Right, the puppet master idea.
Exactly. And it's unequivocally false. It's a core safeguard, actually. The subject responds with certain limitations, and they may or may not accept suggestions. They will absolutely not act against their most deeply held moral beliefs. They are always conscious and aware and in control. Any attempt to force them against their core values will just cause them to come out of hypnosis immediately.
That's a huge relief for many listeners, I'm sure. Really puts to rest those fears of being a puppet. Okay, what about the idea that someone's unconscious during hypnosis? Myth number 2. Under hypnosis, you are unconscious.
Also false. As we've established, it's an altered state of mind, much more like daydreaming or being totally absorbed in a movie. Subjects are at all times conscious and aware and in control of what is happening to them.
Conscious and aware. Got it.
And they can come out of hypnosis anytime that they choose. It's far from being knocked out. You're just more focused inward.
And the third myth, one I hear a lot, usually with a bit of a smirk, only weak-minded people can be hypnotized. What does the book say about that?
Completely the opposite, actually. Generally, more intelligent people are easier to hypnotize.
Really?
Yeah, possibly, because they have a greater ability to inwardly visualize and not be distracted by other thoughts. It requires focus, imagination qualities often linked with intelligence, and an active inner world.
Huh.
So, if anything, being easily hypnotized might be a sign of mental agility and focused attention.
Fourth myth, a classic movie trope. You can get stuck in hypnosis. I've seen that one play out on screen countless times.
Yeah, it makes for good drama, but this is impossible. The book's very clear. If the hypnotist were to, drop dead mid-session,
Okay.
the subject would either just come out of hypnosis by themselves or drift off to sleep.
Yeah.
There's no permanent stuck state. Your mind always has its self-regulating mechanisms.
Good to know. Fifth, you can be made to reveal embarrassing secrets. Given what we've heard about free will, I suspect the answer is similar here.
You'd be right. False, for the same reasons as doing things against your will. The subject is aware of what is happening and cannot be forced to do things against their will. Your deepest secrets stay yours if you want them to. Hypnosis facilitates, it doesn't compel.
Okay. And finally, number 6, if you can hear the hypnotist, you weren't hypnotized. This one's tricky because sometimes people do feel like they were just, listening.
Yeah, this is a very common misconception, and it's completely natural. Hypnosis is not sleep. People experience it differently. Hearing and remembering what the hypnotist said is totally normal.
So the feeling isn't the proof.
Exactly. While a subject might not feel hypnotized in the way they expect from movies, the hypnotist can see the physical changes, muscle relaxation, slower breathing, and the modified behavior. That's the ultimate proof that a state shift happened. The feeling isn't the measure, the changes are.
These detailed explanations really underscore the importance of dispelling these myths with your subject beforehand. You absolutely have to clear the air first to remove resistance, build trust, and set proper, realistic expectations. Hashtag 3-3. Hypnotic considerations. So once those doubts are cleared up, inducing hypnosis is described as relatively easy. But the core question for the hypnotist then becomes what you want to achieve once that you've put them into the trance. It's all about the intention, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you make sure those intentions turn into effective suggestions?
Well, if the goal is therapeutic, say, breaking a bad habit, the preparation is absolutely critical. You need to talk frankly, really extensively with the subject beforehand.
Okay.
You need to understand what is behind the problem, what the problem means to the subject, how life would be better if the problem didn't exist, and what motivates them the most to change their behavior. This pre-hypnosis chat isn't just small talk, it's vital.
Vital.
Because you're gathering that necessary, deeply personal information that will make the hypnotic suggestions actually resonate.
So you tailor the suggestions to their unique specifics, ideally using their exact words and phrases so the suggestions strike an immediate chord. It's like crafting a custom narrative for their subconscious.
Precisely.
Learning about their life, work, and family that can really help create a very powerful suggestion because it connects the change directly to their personal values, their identity.
Absolutely. And another fundamental key to success for the hypnotist is to at least appear to be confident in your own abilities.
Appear confident.
Well, yeah. If the subject senses any doubt, any hesitation, then hypnotizing them will be very difficult indeed. This confidence isn't just about stage presence. It's about preparation, genuine competence.
The advice here seems incredibly practical. It suggests know what you're going to be doing inside out, be comfortable with the scripts, and practice on a willing volunteer first. It really highlights building your own skill and belief by starting with maybe just a slight relaxing trance and gradually deepening it. Like any skill, practice makes perfect, right?
Definitely. Building rapport is also vitally important. Now, there are specific techniques like leading and pacing or mirroring body language to subtly build connection.
Right. NLP stuff.
Yeah, but the source suggests it's often simpler, maybe more authentic. Just win the subject's trust whilst talking to them prior to the hypnosis itself. That pre-hypnosis conversation where you address concerns, answer questions, genuinely listen. That's the ideal time to build that real connection. That human bond can be more powerful than any fancy technique sometimes.
This is where personality can shine through, but also where expectations can get a bit theatrical. The author emphasizes your appearance. People, he says, have an expectancy for how a hypnotist will look, act, and speak. The example of Milton Erickson, who had this deep voice and famously dressed in a purple cape, that's memorable. It paints a picture, doesn't it?
It certainly does. But the point isn't necessarily that you need to rush out and buy a purple cape.
Right.
But more about conforming to the general impression of how a hypnotist should be in a way that instills confidence and comfort for the subject. A reclining chair helps set a relaxing vibe. even if it's not strictly needed for the hypnosis itself.
Okay.
And regarding voice, you definitely don't need a naturally deep and soothing voice. Explaining hypnosis calmly beforehand, in your normal voice, that helps build confidence and gets them used to your speaking style. That's often more effective than some kind of forced performance.
You know, what's often funny is when someone tries to force that hypnotist's voice. The source uses this all caps example. It's great. Into my voicey and only my voicey. I can almost hear it and it just sounds silly.
And that's exactly the problem. The advice is just speak naturally without trying to force a hypnotist's voice. Explain things calmly beforehand in your natural voice. That builds confidence.
But then during the induction?
During induction, it's crucial to speak clearly, slowly, calmly, and in a monotonous tone. Why? Because any intonation of words catches the attention of the conscious mind, which is exactly what you're trying to gently bypass.
Right, you want it to switch off.
Exactly. Repetitive, monotonous speech, however, tends to slip right past the critical sensor and into the subconscious mind. It lulls the conscious mind. It's a subtle art of delivery.
And before you actually begin, some basic practicalities. Make sure the subject is ready, including simple things like making sure they've been to the toilet. Avoid unnecessary distractions, right? Practicality first. You don't want a full bladder interrupting the process. #TAC4. Inducing hypnosis.
Okay, before we jump into the actual steps of induction, there's a crucial safety point. While hypnosis is generally harmless, there are specific contraindications where you should absolutely refuse to hypnotize someone.
Okay, this is important.
Yeah, these aren't suggestions. They're guidelines for responsible practice. They include situations where, 1, the person is schizophrenic. 2, they've recently suffered a nervous breakdown. 3, they're taking medication for or are deeply depressed. And 4, they've recently undergone electroconvulsive therapy, or ECT.
That's incredibly important to know. And for you, the listener, understanding these limitations really highlights that hypnosis isn't some universal cure-all. It's a powerful tool, yes, but one that requires responsible use and knowing the boundaries, especially therapeutically. It's about working within the person's capacity and safety.
Exactly. Now, the hypnotic experience itself is broken down into 4 distinct sequential steps. It gives a clear progression.
Okay, what are they?
1, induction. This is the start. Encouraging relaxation, guiding them into a hypnotic state. 2, deepening. Once a light trance is there, you further the trance. This is often needed because while some people go deep quickly, many need more guidance. 3, post-hypnotic suggestion. This is the core work, giving the actual suggestions for the desired change. And 4, awakening. The final, equally important step, carefully bringing the subject back to full awareness.
That clear structure is really helpful for understanding the flow, and the book promises scripts for each stage later, which gives the practical how-to. So let's dive into the induction itself. What's the very first thing you do to encourage that relaxed hypnotic state?
The first step is to encourage the subject to relax and to enter a hypnotic state. They should be comfy, seated, or lying down, facing you, but maybe slightly off-center, creates a relaxed focus without being too intense. Crucially, you need a simple object for the subject to focus their attention on. It could be a picture of a blue circle or a dot on the wall, even just a pen on your desk. Something simple.
Why the object?
It just needs to be in front of them so they don't have to strain. It helps turn attention inward, concentrates their focus. The key is that single-minded focus.
The book stresses that wording is very important. It advises avoiding negative words and phrases because they're not accepted as readily by the subconscious mind as positive ones. Why is that? Why does the subconscious prefer positive framing?
Well, the subconscious doesn't really process negatives like the conscious mind does. If I say, don't think of a pink elephant, what do you immediately do?
Think of a pink elephant.
Right. Similarly, saying don't feel anxious, the subconscious has to process anxious first. Positive phrasing, like feel calm, is more direct, easier to integrate. So from the very first sentence, the phrasing is critical. Let's look at their example opening. Hypnosis is an interesting experience. If you'll just focus your eyes on something while I speak, we'll proceed very smoothly. Most people like to stare at this dot on the wall.
Okay.
This is just a masterclass in subtle suggestion. Not just what it says, but how it says it.
Break that down for us. What makes that phrasing so effective?
Okay. Interesting implies they should focus, drawing their attention without a harsh command. Smoothly suggests collaboration. An easy process, easing any worry. And most people Indirectly build confidence by implying it's worked before, it's normal, making them feel it's a safe, common path, sets up an expectation of ease and success right from the get-go.
After this clever opening, you then reiterate their control, right? That they can't get stuck, emphasize the power of their subconscious. Why keep repeating that even after busting the myths?
It's about ongoing reassurance, empowering them. Even if they heard it once, repeating that they're in control, can't get stuck, that their subconscious is an ally. It just reinforces trust, minimizes any lingering anxiety.
Okay.
Especially vital when dealing with specific problems, maybe like weight control, where there are deep beliefs involved. It emphasizes that the subconscious is powerful, yes, but it's their subconscious. They are the ultimate decision maker, just being guided to use their own inner resources.
The process then continues with a hypnotic induction script. The book notes there are hundreds available, and you should pick one you're comfortable with. They all aim to get the subject to where they're only really aware of what they're hearing and the internal visualization you're helping them to generate. So as you described, their breathing slowing, body getting heavier. What physical signs do you actually look for? What do they tell you?
As you describe that slowing breathing, the heavier body, you'll observe distinct physical change in them. Even if they were blinking before, they'll likely stare intently at the focal point, stop moving much, muscles start to slacken. This signifies they're shifting into that receptive state. And at this point, you reinforce the extremely beneficial outcome, framing it as something very beneficial, positive, and rewarding to deepen their positive expectation, their commitment to the experience.
And then the final step into trance during induction, right? Closing the eyes.
Exactly. Finally, you suggest their eyes start to become heavier and heavier, asking them to close their eyes when you're ready to begin. This empowers them, letting them initiate that final step into trance. It makes it a conscious choice, even as they drift deeper. The provided full script in the book is an adapted version of the Dave Ellman Rapid Induction script. It's a classic. Many would recognize it from stage shows for its directness, its speed, moves quickly from focus to eye closure, then suggests the eyes are so relaxed they won't open, prepping them for deeper states. Hashtag 5, deepening.
Okay, so once the subject is clearly in a hypnotic trance, the next goal is to deepen it further, to maximize the power of the post-hypnotic suggestions. How does that work? How do you build on that initial connection to really open up those subconscious pathways more effectively?
Deepening essentially amplifies the hypnotic state. It leads to a more profound, more effective trance, making the subconscious even more receptive. The source notes there are dozens of deepening scripts out there, but they all share a common theme. They involve the subject imagining going down or deeper and deeper. This recurring motif, it isn't just a simple command. It leverages our innate psychological association of down with internal journeys.
Like going inside yourself.
Exactly. It's a natural metaphor for introspection, for unconscious states. What's really profound here is how directly our minds respond to symbolic language, literally guiding us into altered states just through imagery. It's fundamental to how our subconscious processes reality.
The book continues with the Dave Ellman script for deepening. It seems to focus intensely on eye relaxation. Tell us how that works.
Yeah, the Ellman script is masterful in its simplicity. It focuses on intense eye relaxation, suggesting the eyelids are tightly glued together so relaxed they just won't open. Then you even test this.
You test it.
You ask them to try to open their eyes. And when they can't, you immediately tell them, stop trying, stop struggling, and just relax deeper. This demonstration, it solidifies the trance in their mind. It proves to them, subconsciously, that the suggestion is working, that they are in a different state.
So that initial resistance, or trying and failing, actually deepens the trance. That's really clever.
Precisely. Creates a powerful feedback loop. As that relaxation spreads from the eyes through the whole body, the mind unwinds. The script then uses an eye-opening and closing drill.
Okay.
Subject opens their eyes for a moment while counting to 3, feeling a wave of deep relaxation enveloping them, then closes them again, relaxing twice as deeply, 10 times as deeply. This repetition, associating a simple physical act with profound relaxation, it's incredibly powerful for deepening the trance.
And then, here's where it gets really interesting. The script guides the subject to count down from 100 out loud, repeating deeper and deeper after each number. The idea is your mind becoming twice as deeply relaxed, 10 times as deeply relaxed, sinking down into a wonderfully deep trance. It sounds very active yet paradoxically relaxing.
It's a brilliant technique. It engages and then disengages the conscious mind. As they count, you suggest you'll find that voice, those numbers, relaxing so deeply that you quickly lose the numbers, lose the ability and the desire to keep on counting down.
Oh.
The voice becomes weaker, fainter. You keep suggesting deepening until they just stop counting, which often happens quite abruptly. This signifies the conscious mind's attention is fully dissipated. A profound level of trance is reached.
The result is a mind that is silent, calm, tranquil, enjoying the deepest level of trance. And at this point, the subject is truly ready for those post-hypnotic suggestions. The critical sensor is bypassed, and they're in that state of heightened suggestibility. Hashtag tag 6, post-hypnotic suggestions.
Okay, so we've induced the trance, we've deepened it significantly. This section is all about the what next, once the subject is deeply hypnotized. What you do depends on what you're looking to achieve. Is there a big difference between suggestions for, say, entertainment versus therapy?
Oh, absolutely. For stage or entertainment purposes, making someone temporarily forget their name or eat an onion thinking it's an apple.
Yeah, the classic stuff.
It's described as pretty straightforward. You just give the suggestions in a similar vein to above and make some associations. Perhaps the onion is really a big, juicy red apple. Just use your imagination. The goal is usually temporary, entertaining compliance. But for therapeutic purposes, like giving up smoking or managing anxiety, the source recommends specific scripts found later in the book, and it also highlights a powerful therapeutic tool, age progression, which we'll discuss next, as being wonderfully effective. So the depth of impact, the permanence of the change, clearly different goals.
Exactly. The core insight here is that at this stage, once the groundwork of induction and deepening is done, it's primarily a matter of speaking the post-hypnotic suggestions to the person. The subject is highly receptive, so the emphasis shifts to careful selection, precise phrasing of these suggestions, tailored to the individual's specific goals. There's no longer a need for complex setup. It's about direct, clear communication with that receptive subconscious. The power comes from the state you've guided them into. Hashtag tag 7, awakening the subject.
This final stage, awakening, it's crucial, requires as much attention as you did the others. The hypnotist has to ensure the subject is totally awake and safe to make their way home. It's about responsible completion, ensuring their well-being.
It's also good practice, the book suggests, to include a final post-hypnotic suggestion, that the subject will relax more deeply and more rapidly the next time they are hypnotized.
Ah, like priming them for next time.
Exactly. It's a practical tip, whether for therapeutic follow-ups to reinforce changes, or, as the source amazingly notes, maybe you have a lot of onions that need eating. It just sets up a positive expectancy, makes future sessions even easier, more effective.
The awakening process usually involves counting, right? The source provides a clear script counting from 1 to 5, ending with the command, fully awake. How does that gradual count ensure a smooth return?
It guides a deliberate, gradual return to awareness, builds from deep relaxation back to full alertness. It progresses like this. 1, slowly, calmly, easily, you're returning to your full awareness.
Right.
2, each muscle and nerve in your body is loose and limp and relaxed. 3, from head to toe, you are feeling perfect in every way. Feeling good. 4, your eyes begin to feel alert and awake. And finally, number 5, you're fully awake now. Eyelids open. Take a good, deep breath, fill up your lungs, and stretch. This systematic approach ensures a smooth, comfortable reorientation, prevents any lingering grogginess, makes sure they feel grounded, refreshed.
The aim is for the subject to be wide awake and hopefully to have kicked their habit or achieved whatever the desired change was. The whole journey culminates in this refreshed, reoriented state, ready to apply that new programming in their waking life. Okay, this section unveils a very powerful tool for use in therapeutic hypnosis. Especially effective, it says, for breaking habits like smoking. It's called age progression. Sounds intriguing, like literally seeing your future. How does this work to drive change?
The core concept is simple, yet really profound. It involves taking the hypnotized subject into 2 alternative futures. One if they continue smoking, the other if they stop smoking.
2 futures.
Yeah. And this isn't just telling them what might happen. It's having them experience it through vivid mental visualization. It's essentially creating an emotional rehearsal for their future. And that deep personal engagement makes the suggestions incredibly powerful.
So in the bad future, subjects visualize themselves as they will be if they follow that path, becoming embroiled in the emotions of themselves and their loved ones. Then their future self speaks to their present-day self, letting them see and experience what awaits them if they keep going down that road. That emotional hit must be a powerful deterrent.
Exactly. Conversely, in the good future, they see how things could be if they break their habit, and their future self is thanking them for the wise decision. This visualization of a fit and healthy self heaping praise on the present-day self encourages and reinforces the positive change. It's about building a compelling, desirable future that acts as a really strong motivator, creating an internal reward.
The example script for smoking, focusing on health, it illustrates this beautifully. It starts with a baseline visualization, right? Like taking a brisk walk in a beautiful park and enjoying smelling the flowers. Grounds them in a positive feeling. Then what?
Then the subject is guided to visualize themselves in a few years' time after your smoking has finally started to catch up with you. Then a couple of years after that, when your smoking has really affected your health.
Wow.
The source notes that subjects may even have started crying at this point, shows the profound emotional impact of truly confronting those potential painful consequences. It's not about being preachy. It's the subject's own mind creating the most impactful scenario for them.
So it's that shock to the system that prompts the change, that visceral experience.
Precisely. The shift then occurs by having them decide to stop smoking right then in the trance, and then immediately visualizing that same brisk walk again in a few years, but now able to walk more briskly and breath more deeply. It offers a tangible, immediate reward for the decision to quit, reinforcing the benefit.
And then, the ultimate payoff. What seals the deal?
Finally, they visualize themselves 15 years' time from now, seeing their older self on a kind of movie screen, maybe splitting the screen to see their present selves too. The older self is then heard speaking to the present you, thanking them for the wise choice made all those years ago. The subject usually seems quite happy after this, signifying hope, maybe profound pride. The hypnotist might then reinforce this, asking things like, was the older you appreciative of the present you, and you must be very proud of yourself. Solidifies that positive outcome.
That's an incredibly powerful mental exercise. And the fascinating part is that the subject may take a few minutes before they nod, indicating they are just deeply involved with their imagined future. It's not a quick picture. It's a deep, immersive experience.
Now, the source stresses the deliberate avoidance of negative suggestion in the hypnotist's own language, like not picturing the subject in an oxygen tent with loved ones wailing.
That seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? You'd think scaring them straight would be effective.
You would think.
Yeah.
But it's actually less effective for two crucial reasons, according to the book. One, even with a subdued critical censor, quote, deeply distressing or undesirable imagery may well be rejected by the subconscious. There's a limit to what the mind accepts if it feels too traumatic.
Okay.
And two, more importantly, a hypnotist cannot ever produce an image as vivid, realistic, inspiring, frightening, motivating, or specific to the subject as the subject themselves can create. That general suggestion when your smoking has really affected your health works because it conjures their specific, most impactful meanings, fears, or hopes. Those are far more potent than any image the hypnotist could describe.
This fundamental principle truly forms the foundations for all good hypnotherapy. It highlights that the most powerful changes come from within the subject's own mind, not from external, forced, negative stuff. It's about guiding their internal processing, unlocking their own motivation. #TireTag9. Abreactions.
Okay, this next section delves into a more intense aspect of therapeutic hypnosis.
Yeah.
Abreaction. It sounds like something that could be, well, challenging, maybe even a bit overwhelming for both the subject and the hypnotist. What exactly is an abreaction?
An abreaction refers to the emotional outpouring that can occur when a traumatic or emotionally painful experience is revisited during hypnosis.
Okay.
This happens because the subject, when guided back to a past event, essentially relives along with the emotions and feelings from that original experience. This can manifest as a sudden emotional discharge, things like crying, anger, intense fear, even physical reactions like shaking. It's the mind bringing suppressed emotion right to the surface. And what's truly fascinating here is that this release, this outpouring of suppressed emotion, is considered to have a very beneficial therapeutic effect. So it's not just a difficult moment, it's potentially a crucial one.
Exactly. It allows the subject to confront and come to terms with buried traumas from their past. It's a way for the mind to finally process and release what's been held captive, maybe for years.
So how should a hypnotist handle this? It sounds delicate.
The source provides critical guidelines, emphasizing safety and absolute respect for the subject's process. First, it's unwise to attempt to force a subject to visit difficult times. They should always choose, guided by their own readiness and the hypnotist's careful prompting.
Right. Consent is key.
Absolutely. Second, do not force them to show emotion. Allow them to react as they choose, crying, silence, whatever feels authentic. Third, and this is vital, do not interrupt them during an outpouring. Instead, Observe and listen intently. Provide a safe, non-judgmental space for that release.
Okay, and afterwards?
After the emotional peak passes, gently guide them back to a calmer, more peaceful state with a script-like. Clear your mind and let the scene fade away now. Go deeper into relaxation and enjoy the pleasant, calm, and relaxing feelings. Now come forward into a time when you're happy and enjoying yourself thoroughly. This brings them back to a sense of peace, helps integrate the experience.
The source notes, sometimes it might be necessary to have the subject revisit the memory for complete resolution, guiding them back gently with the understanding that the feelings will be much less intense this time, allowing for more controlled processing. Sounds like a careful dance.
It is. And for helping subjects truly come to terms with repressed emotion, the Gestalt method of therapy is specifically suggested. This method offers a structured yet deeply personal way to address these issues by externalizing inner conflict.
The Gestalt method. How does that work in practice during hypnosis?
It involves directing the subject, while they're reliving the memory, to calmly and rationally tell the other person in their memory exactly how they feel. This might take several minutes, allowing a full, uncensored expression of those suppressed emotions or thoughts, but using their adult faculties, intellect, language, knowledge, rather than being trapped in the past emotional state.
Okay, expressing it rationally. And then?
Then they are directed to become the other person in the memory and to respond to what was just said.
Ah, role-playing.
Exactly. The profound purpose is to allow the subject to view the event again from a different perspective, gaining insight into the other person's possible motivations or circumstances. From there, it can lead to understanding and eventually maybe forgiveness and resolution of the problem. It's a powerful way to reframe past events from a place of adult understanding, rather than staying trapped by old emotional responses. #Tag 10. Hypnosis and mind control.
Now, we shift gears a bit, looking at how hypnosis intersects with magic, particularly mentalism or mind control. This is where figures like Darren Brown really come into play, blurring those lines between skillful performance art and what looks like actual psychic ability.
Mind control, a term popularized by Darren Brown himself, describes a form of magic involving apparent control, manipulation, and prediction of human behavior.
Yeah.
The fascinating twist, according to the source, is that while it supposedly relies on a blend of psychology, NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, and subliminal commands, the source reveals it also uses hypnosis and a substantial dose, C.80% plus, of traditional magical trickery.
80% plus, so a lot of classic magic techniques hidden in there.
A significant amount, yeah. It's a very clever combination of misdirection and subtle psychological influence.
So the key is the very clever use of the above techniques to support the illusion, creating this powerful impression that it's all done using only psychological manipulation. It's not just trickery, it's smart artistry leveraging how our minds work. The author even teases his own book, The Ultimate Revelation, for more secrets on how these effects are really built.
Right. The source outlines 3 key principles often used in these effects to create that illusion of mind control.
Okay, what are they?
First, dual reality. This technique, used in both magic and stage hypnosis, creates a scenario where the performer presents material so that both the subject and the audience experience different things. The brilliance is in those divergent perceptions of the same event.
The example of guessing Jim's name is brilliant for illustrating this. The performer quietly asks Jim his name, then loudly says they've never met this person before, pauses dramatically.
Builds the suspense.
Right. Then says, Jim, isn't it? The audience thinks, wow, mind reading. They applaud, which the performer modestly dismisses. Meanwhile, Jim, the subject, just thinks he momentarily forgot his own name before recovering it. It's a masterful manipulation of expectation and perception.
Exactly. The genius of dual reality is exploiting that natural difference in perception between an active participant and a passive observer, creating 2 simultaneous realities from one action.
Okay, what's the second principle?
Second is invisible compromise. Similar to dual reality, but here the volunteer actually knowingly helps to perform the trick. Now, they aren't stooges in the traditional sense.
Okay.
But they are skillfully used by the magician to actively participate, controlled by clever verbal commands that mean one thing to the audience and something completely different to the volunteer.
Ah, hidden meanings.
Precisely. The source explicitly states this is a very closely guarded secret in magic circles. It was apparently used by Darren Brown in his dinner party synchronized drinking effect. The implication is that hidden agreements or dual meanings are in play. The volunteer follows an instruction they understand one way, while the audience, unaware, interprets it as mind control. It leverages ambiguity and shared secrets.
Clever. And the third principle?
Third is pattern interrupts. This is a core term in hypnosis and NLP, a powerful technique really pioneered by Milton Erickson. It involves momentarily interrupting a person's normal thought processes.
How?
By doing something unexpected. This creates a brief, almost imperceptible pause, a moment of confusion. And in that tiny pause, a command like sleep can be quickly given. It slips right past the critical sensor and into the subconscious, precisely because the conscious mind is momentarily disoriented. That brief window of confusion is the crucial opportunity.
A well-known example, which we'll get into, is the handshake induction. But you mentioned it can also be done with unexpected language. How does that work?
Yeah, just the deliberate use of a statement that's at odds with the conversational context.
Mm-hmm.
It confuses the listener, makes them sort of look inwards to figure out what you meant. Their conscious mind pauses, trying to make sense of it.
Mm-hmm.
If you deliver it confidently, this creates that critical window for a command like, you can now go into a deep trance. It's about disrupting the expected flow, creating a momentary cognitive gap. The telesales call example is great for this.
Tell us about that one.
Saying, hello, Mr. Blogs. Perhaps your colleague mentioned to me. That slight grammatical awkwardness creates that subtle disorientation. Sounds like a slip of the tongue, causes a brief pause while they try to sort it out. And during that confusion, an embedded command like, I'm sure we'll work well together, stressed, can be slipped in, designed to bypass conscious processing.
What's truly intriguing is how these pattern interrupts can also be used to cause temporary amnesia by interrupting memory accessing cues. So simple diversions, touching someone, knocking something over, even a cough can create a mild state of uncertainty, a mental blip that creates this window.
Timing is absolutely critical here. The interrupt has to coincide exactly with the person focusing inwards to access the information, right at that moment.
Okay.
The interrupt causes a momentary loss of that train of thought, or access to that specific memory. A suggestion like, all is now forgotten, can then remove the ability to recall it, especially if the person is preoccupied. The more going on in their mind, the more dramatic the effect, as their cognitive resources are already taxed.
Right. Makes them more susceptible.
Yeah. And the source notes, you can use NLP's anchoring technique, associating a movement or sound with that relived amnesia to essentially remember how to forget, which is exactly why the subway amnesia effect is so successful. Hashtag tag head 10.1 hand stuck to desk.
Okay, this is a classic hypnotic effect, the hand stuck to desk trick, famously performed by Darren Brown. It's the kind of thing that makes you gasp, seeing someone seemingly unable to lift their own hand. How does he pull this off without them even realizing they've been hypnotized?
Well, the analysis in the book reveals the apparent use of indirect suggestion and rapport to achieve a rapid hypnotic trance and compliance. It looks like overt control, but the method is way more nuanced, leveraging these subtle psychological principles we've been talking about.
One detail that stands out immediately in the transcript provided is Darren Brown's constant head nodding. This is explained as a nonverbal command, right? And the subject's reciprocal nod signifies subconscious agreement.
It's a subtle way to gain compliance without explicit verbal consent, almost like a conditioned response. Let's look at some key moments from the transcript to see these techniques in action.
Okay.
Darren Brown starts. Just put your hand on the desk to there in front. Now it's a direct command, but the slightly odd phrasing to there in front is a subtle interrupt pattern designed to confuse them just slightly, prepping them for compliance by diverting conscious thought. Then, he says, now I'm not going to hypnotize you. This is incredibly clever. It's an embedded suggestion. It creates an expectation that something like hypnosis is coming.
Right, why else mention it?
It's exactly. While simultaneously removing any anxiety they might have about being hypnotized, making them less resistant.
Yeah.
Then, just press your hand into the table. Direct suggestion. The act of pushing into the table subconsciously implies becoming entwined with the wood itself. Creates a powerful mental link.
Okay.
He also instructs, look me right in the eye. Crucial for projecting absolute confidence, maintaining focus. The subject says nothing but certainty, deepening their compliance. And then the classic line, the more you try in vain to unstick it from the table, the tighter it sticks.
Ah, the classic bind.
Yeah, a classic Ericksonian hypnosis suggestion. The word try subtly implies expected failure. It's an instruction designed to be impossible to follow, paradoxically reinforcing the suggestion's power.
And then linking the hand lifting to forgetting their name.
Right. Later, after the hand is stuck, DB says, the reason why it lifts up is that your name will disappear from your mind. A direct command followed by examples of common amnesia like being on the tip of your tongue, normalizing the upcoming experience, giving a sort of logical out for why they'll forget.
The performance ends with Darren tapping the subject's head to restore their name, a clear command to return to normal. The source concludes this effect is achieved through suggestion, both direct and indirect, once that the subject has entered into just a light hypnotic trance. Whether they were formally pre-hypnotized is debatable, maybe, but it's entirely possible with these methods. Highlights the power of these subtle techniques. Hashtag 10.2 subway amnesia. Okay, this is another incredible Darren Brown effect. Subway amnesia. Making a subway passenger forget their stop just by talking to them. This seems almost impossible, like true psychological manipulation. How does he achieve this without any obvious setup?
The method here uses a combination of those pattern interrupts we discussed and anchoring from NLP. Anchoring, just to recap, is defined as teaching someone to associate a particular movement, gesture, or similar with a certain action or feeling.
Like Pavlov's dogs, almost.
Kind of, yeah. Creating a conditioned response. This association can then be invoked by using the trigger later.
Can you give us another quick example of anchoring?
Sure. An everyday one is how coffee might become an anchor for a cigarette for a smoker, or a certain song instantly brings back emotions. Those are natural anchors.
Right.
But anchors can also be deliberately created. The book gives that fascinating Darren Brown spoon-bending example. He approached this very excitable woman who thought she saw the energy bending the spoon.
Which was actually mechanically bent.
Right. As her excitement peaked, he just said, woo, and touched her hand. Later, to bring back that excitement, he just used the same trigger, woo, woo, touched her hand again, and boom, she was right back there. Shows the speed and power an anchor can have, especially with a suggestible person or a performer they trust.
That's incredibly clear. So how does he apply this to make someone forget their subway stop? What are the steps?
Okay, in the subway performance, Darren first subtly asks the subject if they have a good memory. This is a setup, right? Strengthens the impact when they do forget. Then he asks them to think of time when they forgot something, prompting them to access that specific memory of memory lapse.
And then the anchor is set while they're remembering forgetting.
Exactly. As the subject's eyes move upwards and to one side, to access that memory, a natural cue for visual recall. Darren swept his hand slowly but deliberately in front of their eyes. That timing is critical. It creates the anchor, linking the hand sweep to the lapse of memory. He repeated this a couple of times, maybe asking them to recall forgetting something important for the last one. After that, the anchor is firmly set.
So then when he wants them to forget, he just triggers the anchor with the hand sweep.
Precisely. When he asks their stop later, a sweep of the hands acts as both a pattern interrupt and triggers the temporary amnesia associated with that anchor, causes them to forget their stop, and in the performance, actually miss it. It's highly sophisticated, combining physical distraction and psychological conditioning, relying on split-second timing.
And the source emphasizes that simple suggestion after a pattern interrupt can cause amnesia, especially if the person is preoccupied with some other task. The more going on in their mind, the more dramatic the effects. Makes sense. Hashtag tag 10.3, the instant handshake induction. Okay, the instant handshake induction. This is such an iconic image of hypnosis, isn't it? Often seen in Hollywood, suggests almost supernatural powers, that instant control.
Yeah, it looks dramatic. And while it's tricky to master, the book describes it as a very powerful tool. Success really hinges on the hypnotist's confident and skillful persona, and maybe to some extent, selecting the right person. It notes people with obsessive-compulsive disorders are very susceptible, possibly due to higher suggestibility. But it absolutely requires honing those ordinary hypnotic skills first. It's an advanced technique. You can't just walk up and expect it to work without serious practice and a deep understanding of the principles.
The source dives really deep into Milton Erickson's original description of this technique. It gives a granular look at this legendary method. It's truly a masterclass in subtle manipulation, isn't it? Shows how every tiny micro movement can be loaded with hypnotic intent.
Oh, Erickson's description is fantastic.
Yeah.
He breaks down the instant handshake induction into precise steps. Initiation. Starts with a normal handshake, but it immediately transforms. The hypnotic touch begins, the grip loosens, with subtle, lingering touches thumb, little finger, middle finger. This creates just enough vague sensation to attract the attention, establishing a waiting set and expectancy. Their natural urge to withdraw is momentarily arrested by this unusual focus on their hand.
Okay, so you disrupt the normal pattern right away.
Exactly. Then, catalepsy. Almost simultaneously, but subtly separated so the brain registers it. A gentle upward push under the wrist is followed by a slight downward touch. Crucially, contact is severed so gently, the subject doesn't consciously notice when it happened. This leaves the hand cataleptic frozen, going neither up nor down. Lateral touches can make it even more rigidly cataleptic.
Wow. Just suspended there.
Yeah. Then, termination. If you don't want them to realize what happened, you distract their attention with an appropriate remark, casually end the contact. Subjects might say, "What did you say? I got absent-minded there for a moment." This indicates their attention was focused and fixated on the peculiar hand stimuli, leading to momentary trance without them even knowing.
Okay. But if you want to use it for deeper trance...
That's utilization. The process continues. Use nonverbal cues, like shifting your gaze to direct their eyes to their suspended hand. Then touch it while saying, "Look at this spot," intensifying the trance. Erickson described inducing profound glove anesthesia this way, the subject feeling their arm is just gone. And finally, hand levitation eye closure. Suggestions for downward movement of one hand can be paired with upward movement of the other. For instance, the left hand can be directed towards the face, touching an eye to induce closure and a deep trance without a single word having been spoken. Purely nonverbal induction. Genius.
So the core idea is that the handshake is only the vehicle used to propel the subject's attention inwards and into a trance-like state. It's a bold method. It requires the hypnotist to be fully aware and in control of not only your own actions, but also of your subjects, too. A real dance of subtle control and directed attention.
And it's a prime example of a pattern interrupt, right? Stunning the subject momentarily during a common social interaction, providing that critical window for suggestions, verbal and nonverbal. It disrupts the expected behavior in a familiar ritual.
The source also includes practical exercises from Erickson, Rossi, and Rossi on nonverbal approaches to practice this.
Yeah, really useful stuff for building sensitivity. Careful observation of eyes phased during a normal handshake, practicing slower hand release than definite hesitation, watching for nonverbal cues of confusion or expectancy, gauging responsiveness, recognizing good subjects by how receptive they are. Those who stay with you, let you set the pace. Releasing the hand halfway to create confusion, then letting go so gently the hand stays suspended. Finally, learning to add those directing touches for catalepsy or hand levitation, moving from observing to actively influencing.
Stephen Gilligan's 5 steps for the handshake induction offer a slightly simplified breakdown, maybe more approachable.
Yes, his breakdown is helpful too. 1. Creating contact and expectancy. Greet genuinely, absorb their attention. 2. Initiating the pattern. Extend hand, maintain eye contact, talk. Prompt them to extend theirs automatically. 3. Interrupting the pattern. Suddenly accelerate your left hand under their outstretched hand, lifting it to shoulder level, minimal pressure. Your right hand points to their face, distraction, then swings to the lifted hand while you gaze incredulously. This multisensory disruption creates disorientation, rapid dissociation.
Wow, okay. Lots going on there.
Yeah. 4. Amplifying the confusion. Instruct them. Pay very close attention to all of the coloration changes beginning to occur in the fingers of your lifted hand. Unusual, but logical enough to further disorient, fixate attention. Lightly touching fingertips can produce tingling, enhancing the perceptual shift. 5. Utilizing the confusion. Accelerate finger touches, intersperse trance suggestions. Dropping down deeper now. Lower your left hand to induce catalepsy. If it doesn't stick immediately, gently lift it again to reinforce. It's a progressive path into trance, using confusion as the gateway.
So you can see the sheer variety and, frankly, the ingenious detail of these techniques, all designed to gently or rapidly guide the mind into that receptive state, leveraging natural human responses and deep psychological principles. It's truly an art form. Right, so after induction, the next crucial step is often deepening the trance for maximum effect. The book offers several types of scripts for this, building on that initial state of suggestibility. What are some of the main approaches used for deepening?
Deepeners are designed to amplify the hypnotic state, basically leading to a more profound, more effective trance. They do this by further relaxing the conscious mind and increasing the subconscious's receptivity. The book showcases several distinct approaches.
Like what?
Well, there are relaxation methods. These involve guiding the subject to feel increasing relaxation throughout their body. One script links this relaxation directly to their breathing or heart rate, suggesting that with each breath, each heartbeat, they become calmer, drift deeper. Another uses physical tests, like raising the subject's hand and letting it drop like a rag doll, then suggesting that as it touches their body, a wave of relaxation doubles their previous level of trance. It physically demonstrates and therefore deepens the relaxation.
Okay, so using physical feedback, what else?
There's the staircase method. This is a classic visualization technique. The subject imagines descending a staircase, and with each step down, they go deeper and deeper into relaxation.
Right, I've heard of that one.
Yeah, this mental journey is often linked to physical sensations feeling heavier, calmer, culminating in sinking into a wonderfully comfortable feather bed at the bottom, symbolizing profound comfort and peace. It really leverages the mind's ability to create vivid internal experiences.
And one more.
Then there's the stiff arm method. Here, the subject's arm is made stiff and rigid, like a steel bar, through suggestion. Then comes the suggestion that the harder they try to bend it, the stiffer it becomes.
Another one of those binds.
Exactly. This paradox highlights the power of suggestion, the temporary suspension of normal muscle control. It demonstrates the depth of their trance to them. Then, a simple touch to their forehead is used to release the stiffness, sending them deeper asleep, as that physical tension releases into profound relaxation.
What's really fascinating here is how these methods play on both physical sensations and imagination to deepen the hypnotic state. They leverage that mind-body connection in incredibly clever ways to make the subconscious even more receptive to change. Okay, this vast section of the book provides a really comprehensive array of specific scripts for various therapeutic applications. It's like a practical toolkit for change, covering everything from minor habits to significant emotional challenges. How does the book categorize these applications, and what are some of the most compelling examples it gives?
Yeah, this is really the heart of the practical application. Each script targets a particular behavior or emotional state, offering direct, sometimes indirect, suggestions for transformation. It reinforces that idea that once they're in deep trance, you're basically just speaking directly to the subconscious. The book groups these scripts by the type of change they aim for.
Okay.
One major category focuses on overcoming unwanted habits and addictions. For instance, the drug addiction sessions offer extensive multifaceted scripts. Session 1, for example, directly associates withdrawal symptoms like nausea or muscle tightness with the drug itself, making taking the drug unpleasant.
Reassociating it negatively.
Right, while simultaneously suggesting that withdrawal actually feels good, thereby reversing the conditioned response. Session 2 then focuses on convalescence, building a strong self-image as a cured individual, reinforcing the acronym SAFE, stable, adequate, final, effective, to prevent relapse. Similarly, the stop smoking scripts use powerful techniques, like instilling an immediate desire to stop now, associating cigarettes with intensely negative feelings, hate cigarettes, filthy, nauseates, even suggesting an uncontrollable compulsion to break it in two as soon as it enters your hand. This shows how hypnosis can fundamentally alter deeply ingrained desires and physical responses.
That's a truly direct approach, reassociating pleasure with stopping and disgust with the habit itself. What about scripts for managing physical or emotional discomfort?
That's another significant area, pain control and emotional regulation. The pain control and pain or anxiety scripts are a fantastic example of reframing. They aim to transform pain into just a warning signal, not suffering. One script focuses on visualizing a healing light in the affected area to make the pain dissipate. Another, more abstract approach suggests transforming unwanted feelings, pain, tension into a shape that can then be consciously made smaller. It's color faded, diminishing the sensation, making it controllable.
Controlling it mentally.
Exactly. For emotional challenges, the jealousy script focuses on building self-confidence, releasing negativity, replacing it with divine love, recognizing self-worth, accepting oneself and others. The easing someone from your mind script aims for emotional detachment, mentally erasing negative associations with a person, promoting inner peace and self-reliance by suggesting negative memories fade, replaced by a divine white healing light, shows the power of changing that internal narrative.
Those are powerful examples of gaining control over inner states. What about building positive states or skills? Is that covered?
Oh, absolutely. A large portion is dedicated to confidence building and skill enhancement. The public speaking script is incredibly comprehensive. It builds self-confidence, enhances communication skills, fosters connection with the audience, visualizes success.
Covers everything.
Pretty much. From establishing a strong, calm, vibrant voice tone to developing spontaneous body language, projecting poise and clarity, emphasizing that people like listening to you, it's about instilling a complete, confident persona. And then there are broader self-confidence scripts aiming to build intrinsic self-worth, focusing on accepting yourself and others, taking responsibility, letting go of fear, creating a positive reality, maintaining calm, reinforcing that your opinion matters, that you are in charge of your own life.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? You can really see the incredible breadth of applications for post-hypnotic suggestion, from overcoming deeply ingrained habits to building profound self-confidence, even managing physical sensations. It truly is a versatile tool for personal transformation. Hashtag #Hadig11. Final thoughts.
Wow. This deep dive into mind control, NLP, and hypnosis has been truly eye-opening, wouldn't you agree? It's so much more nuanced than the stage show caricatures we often see. Absolutely. We've journeyed from the basic definition, clarifying its natural state, bunting those myths, all the way to the intricate details of induction, deepening, and the profound power of post-hypnotic suggestions for change. It really lays bare the mechanics of influence and self-transformation, moves it from mystery to something more practical, understandable.
And it's fascinating seeing how techniques like age progression can create such powerful internal motivation, or how those mind control illusions blend psychology with subtle trickery. Even using something as common as a handshake as a pathway to trance makes you realize how much our perception, our habits, are shaped by suggestion, internal and external.
Indeed. The author concludes by affirming the book has provided everything that you need to know to induce a hypnotic trance in just about anyone. However, and this is important, it emphasizes that the therapeutic use of hypnosis in removing habits and undesirable behavior takes careful thought and use of words, suggesting a need for deeper study, more practice for those pursuing hypnotherapy seriously.
And the advice is timeless for anyone in a helping role. Please remember to be patient with your patients. Hypnosis can be a daunting prospect for some people. They might need time to respond. A reminder that empathy is just as crucial as technique.
Exactly. The core message then is clear. If you start off by endeavoring to look after your subject's best interests, then you won't go far wrong, and it will be an enjoyable and rewarding experience for you both. It's about ethical, person-centered application of these powerful tools. And the book then provides that wealth of practical scripts for inductions, deepening, and post-hypnotic suggestion, giving you the direct tools to put these principles into practice if you choose.
So for you, the listener, understanding these mechanisms of suggestion and subconscious receptivity, it isn't just about formal hypnosis, is it? It raises a bigger question. How might this apply to other areas of your life? Could being aware of how our minds process information, how we respond to direct and indirect suggestions, could that help you navigate daily interactions with greater insight? Whether it's in communication, marketing, even just understanding your own reactions, your own biases.
Think about that. The power of suggestion is, well, it's everywhere, influencing us in ways we rarely stop to consider. Understanding its mechanics, as laid out in this deep dive, offers a really profound lens through which to view your own mind and the world around you.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.